I'm Mara, this is Rob. We're happy and excited to be here. To be fair, Sutherland-Welles has moved, started in North Carolina, moved to Brooklyn, then was up in Vermont from 1980 something up until 2021 when we purchased the business and moved it down to Providence. Rob, I'm the president, Rob is the vice president. Rob is also the president of Heritage Restoration. They've been around for, 25 years?
Something like that.
He does historic preservation contracting all over, wherever he can. Just kidding.
Wow.
Prior to doing Sutherland-Welles, I'm a visual artist, and I was teaching at the University of Rhode Island and the Community College of Rhode Island for about 18 years. And the only thing that I knew that Rob used in his business was Sutherland-Welles, because when he found it, he became obsessed with it and talked about it all the time. So when the opportunity to buy the business and leave my very lucrative adjunct professor jobs came around, I was like, all right, we can do this. So Rob is
Well, no, you said you effing talk about it all the time. We might as well.
And yes, we're married, obviously.
Yeah.
And there's banter. Anyway, so we moved Sutherland-Welles down to Providence in 2021. We were open for business in January of 2022. We started selling right off the bat. The majority of our business is direct to consumer online, but we do sell in stores. So in Rhode Island, Adler's Hardware, and now the Color House in all their locations except for Westerly. And also we're not a retail outlet, but you can come to us if you need to purchase something, but you're not actually purchasing, you just be picking up. I'm going to do a little PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to go through it fast because I know you're all woodworkers or hands-on kind of people, and you really want to be touching and hearing what Rob says because he's really our technical expert. I'm going to go through all of our different lines, things that they're good for, why our finishes are different than other tung oil finishes, so on and so forth. And I'm going to do it quickly, and then I'm going to send the presentation to Merle, and he can share it with you all so that you can have that information, because I tend to talk quickly, so you can tell me to slow down.
I do it all the time.
And also we're going to answer some questions. We'll do some questions and answers in the end, and all the questions I'm sure are going to go to Rob when I'm done with this presentation. So we're Sutherland-Welles. We were founded by Frank Wells in 1965. So this is our 60th anniversary year. We're going to be doing a celebration in the month of July. So what is tung oil? Tung oil is a vegetable oil made from pressing the seeds of tung nuts. It comes from a tung tree. Tung oil has been used for centuries in China to preserve wood, metal, boats. Tung trees are native to China, but they now grow in South America and the United States. Tung oil production has currently been revived in the United States. Tung oil was produced in the United States up until in the 1930s to the 1960s. It was used for wood finishes. It was declined during World War II when the government took over production to use it to coat metals. And then in the 60s, the hurricanes came around and destroyed the remaining tung oil production in the country. There's a picture that just popped up. I don't know what's going on with my presentation.
No, this is my one.
Oh, right. Okay, so Rob, I made the presentation, and Rob was like, I'm going to make it better. So here we go. So this photograph is a tung. This is the actual tung plantation, the tung oil plantation in the Gulf Coast. So it's in Florida, the Tallahassee area, and then southern Georgia. There's a gentleman who's revived tung oil production in the United States. So we're sourcing about I would say, just about 100% of our tung oil from him at this point, which is really exciting for a number of different reasons. The main reason to my mind is the carbon footprint of getting oil from China to here, but there are many others. The tung tree will flower and make these really pretty little flowers and then produces its nuts, and then they get harvested. And this is a really, really, really old tung tree in Vietnam. It's humongous. No, I have not.
We haven't even seen the small ones yet either.
Yeah, maybe one day. So why tung oil? Tung oil is a hardening oil that's harder, more durable, and more water resistant than linseed oil. Tung oil is not going to yellow, it's not going to darken, and it's not going to mold or mildew like linseed oil. And the reason I'm ragging on linseed oil is the other hardening oil that many woodworkers use. And traditionally, it's been used in the Western world to preserve wood, to finish wood. And so I don't hate linseed oil. We just, at Sutherland-Welles, believe that tung oil is a better choice. Tung oil is not going to crack or peel like a polyurethane. It's 100% food safe once it's cured. Tung oil is naturally toxic to humans prior to curing, so you don't want to drink it. It's easy to apply, it's easy to repair. It enhances the grain definition, and it will maintain its color. Tung oil production is natural and completely renewable, so we like that at Sutherland-Welles. Frank Wells really wanted to find an alternative to French polish and something that was going to be environmentally friendly way back in the 60s before it was cool to be green. And so that's kind of baked into what we do. Tung oil trees are inherently insect and disease resistant, requiring no pesticides or fungicides to grow and be productive, which is cool. And then the tung nut byproducts are used to make mulch. So we like using a material that is sustainable and renewable, and we do all sorts of things. And so here's another photograph. This is in Florida. And the company that we work with is Tallahassee Tung Oil, and they're the people who are growing it. And they make raw tung oil if you're interested. And this is some tung nuts growing. And there is a dry tung nut and an undried tung nut. And that is the little seed on the inside of the nut that gets pressed like olive oil, so it's cold pressed. There is tung oil production that uses a chemical process to extract the oil from the tung nuts. But we don't use that oil because apparently it smells bad and it's not as high a quality as a cold pressed oil.
A lot of times it's called the Brazilian nut.
And
so it's a Brazilian nut oil, and there's a Penafin uses it. They call it a
yeah, and the chemical extraction happens mostly in South America. So what makes us so fabulous? We put our oil through a process called polymerization, which is basically a heating process. So we heat the oil right up to the point before it solidifies. So when we heat the oil, it allows the oil to cure faster, cure harder, which if anybody's worked with raw tung oil knows that tung oil takes forever to dry. It's a really lengthy process. The polymerization process helps us speed that up without having to add nasty chemical dryers. It's both penetrative and it's a surface build finish, and you can see our little diagram here that the oil, the first couple of coats of oil that you put on is going to penetrate deep down into the pores of the wood. It's going to cure, it's going to harden, it's going to help to strengthen the pores of the wood. And then as you get to your third and fourth coats, you start to build a film finish. So you get kind of the best of both worlds. The polymerization process reduces the need for chemical dryers or additives that give the finish strong chemical odors. So our finishes don't smell bad, which is nice. And the polymerization process increases the viscosity or body of the oil needed. That's weird. We have low VOC. And so we need to add low VOC and non-toxic solvents to improve the workability, consistency, and performance of our wood finish formulations. And so basically, what is in all of our finishes just starts with our polymerized tung oil. We add a solvent, and to some of them we add some resins. So it's fairly simple. And then our exterior formulation, we add UV guards and fungicides. So here's a little video of the polymerization process. And then on the left is the original polymerization tank that they used at the beginning. So when Frank learned how to polymerize tung oil, they would roll that over an open flame and cook it. And so now we have that. We don't do it like that anymore. It's like this big?
Yeah, it probably holds 300 gallons or so. They were I never met Frank, unfortunately, but I have a feeling he was a little crazy. But it would be a gas, it would be tracks in the facility, in the Brooklyn facility.
An Empire varnish, yeah.
And an Empire varnish, and then they would just put it on top of the flame and they would cook it like 6 or 8 hours. But the trick to it is you get it to this viscosity here, but if you did it for another 20 minutes, it would turn into a jelly mess. And it'll just lock up. So you're stopping it right before it hardens up. into that higher viscosity.
What type of additives did you say go in? You said
So our polymerized oil, we use 2 different solvents in our formulations. Some have one, some have the other, and some have both. And then we use 2 different resins, and then our exterior products have UV guards and fungicides in them.
So no dryers or anything to accelerate its cure. The thing that slowed down its cure over the years is the solvent. Using odorless solvents, they just evaporate slower. So that kind of slowed the finish down a little bit. But you don't have to add anything to it because it wants to turn into that. It wants to harden once it flashes off. But we can talk about that more.
So we only use the highest quality cold pressed tung oil from sustainable tung tree farms in the United States and China. Many other tung oil finishes contain little to no tung oil finish in their base, using a mixture of chemical additives, resins, and thinners instead to match the performance of our finishes. Fun fact, you can call anything a tung oil finish. It does not need to actually have tung oil in it. Sutherland-Welles tung oil finishes contain 100% real polymerized tung oil and are formulated to produce beautiful, durable, and lasting finishes for all types of projects. Our finishes are easy to recoat and repair and don't need to be sanded to bare wood to reapply, which is one of the really nice benefits of our finish. And our original and our botanical lines are Green Guard certified for low chemical emissions. All of our finishes meet VOC requirements for the most stringent states in the United States as well. So we can ship everywhere. And this is just a little diagram of all of our products, which I'm going to run through quickly. The most asked question we get, and we do extensive customer service, is you have so many finishes, and I have no idea what to pick. So I'm going to go through this, and I'm sure if you ever have a question about that, you're welcome to call and ask. But everything starts with our tung oil up at the top. Then we have our botanical line, and I'll go into this. And then we have our original. Those are essentially the same finishes. They just have different solvents in them. Okay? And then we make some paste wax. We make a oil wax blend. We make a wiping varnish, which has resin in it. We make our Murdoch line, which is our resin tung oil hybrid system, which includes our most durable line, which is the Murdoch's U500 line.
That's good stuff.
It's good stuff, yeah. It was designed as a floor finish, but we have so many furniture makers who love to use it on tables and everything, bar tops, countertops. It's great for all sorts of applications. And then we also make a wood cleaner, a tung oil polish, which is a great polish, and something called bowl and board, which is a conditioner for cutting boards. I think that's everything we make.
So, and just to go back to that one, just so you can understand the logic of this thing. So the idea is that it all starts with the tung oil up there, and then here is where you add resin. When you add resin to the original tung oil, you end up getting the wiping varnishes in the Murdoch's line. So fundamentally, you're sort of looking at somewhat of that trifecta of the original varnishes, right? Where you've got your oil and then resins that are sort of mixed with a solvent. And that ratio, that balance of the oil to resin to solvent was something that Frank later sort of sought out. He started without using resins, but then he later went into the resins when he wanted a little bit more protection.
And longevity. So
it's interesting that we have like so many finishes, but fundamentally we only have like 3 ingredients. So there's a lot of playfulness that can kind of happen with the finish. We even have some finishers that mix like our wiping varnish with our original just to get a little bit different of a feel or an outcome. It's kind of neat. So
this is our original. This is our polymerized tung oil with our odorless mineral spirits. This is a Green Guard certified product. It is a VOC exempt product. Comes in pints, quarts, gallons. It can be brushed on. It can be wiped on. It can be sprayed. And we also make a sealer. Anything else I need to say about this?
Satin, gloss.
Low, medium, and high luster for the original. The original, the botanical, The cool thing about the original, the botanical, is you could buy the high luster and cut it yourself. We have instructions for that to make the other lusters. The sheen in those two lines are controlled by how much oil is in the formulation and how much oil is left on the surface. So you could buy the high luster and add some odorless mineral spirits and get to the low, medium, or sealer. It's a kind of a way that we try to help people be more economical. If you're inclined to do so, a lot of people just want to buy it right off the shelf, which is why we make it in a sealer, low, medium, high.
The products that you talk about, you add resins?
Not this particular one.
So, yeah, the original,
But the other products that you add resins, what are the resins?
We use a uralgid resin.
phenolic resin, but it's a petroleum-based fortified.
Yep, and so it's a lower VOC resin. It's clear, non-yellowing, and extremely durable. And it doesn't. The reason that I think it was chosen for Sutherland-Welles is because it doesn't look plasticky. And so, like Rob uses it a ton. Rob uses it on every floor he does on many historic properties because it looks like a tung oil finish.
That just add durability to it?
Yeah. So, but it'll give you, where our original floor, or if you put the original on the floor, you'll get 5 to 8 years. But with the Murdoch system, you're going to get 10 to 15 years. So,
and it's more like a traditional, an older polyurethane. It's kind of the idea. It just doesn't stink as much.
So original tung oil is best used for anything interior, wood trim, paneling, furniture, instruments, gun stocks, floors, toys, and turning. Mouthful. Botanical is essentially the same finish, except that we use a citrus-based solvent. So the solvent that we use in this comes from the byproducts of the citrus industry. It is more expensive than the original because that solvent, the price fluctuates depending on the citrus crops. And it contains no petroleum products. So for people who don't want any petroleum-based products, this is a great way to go. It's also Green Guard certified, and it's also VOC exempt. It can be wiped or brushed on, and it comes in the same as the original, sealer, low, medium, high. You can buy the high. We sell the solvent. Rob is passing around the smell. It smells like it is a very strong scent. Okay, and it's used for exactly the same things, exactly the same kinds of projects that the original we used for. And this is a wood turner, Sam Neandro, and he loves to use the botanical oil on his vessels. You don't know him? Do you know him? Sam Neandro? And then we make something called Millie's, which is part of the botanical line, but she's a little bit different. And here's another fun fact about Sutherland-Welles. Frank, the founder of the business, named a couple of products after his grandparents. So Millie was his grandmother. Murdoch was his grandfather.
He was
a sailor. And so when we introduce new products, we're kind of doing that. And so Teddy was my grandmother. So we brought some of our polymerized paste wax, and we did introduce a wood preservative for old wood, and we named it after Rob's grandmother, Clarabelle. So Millie's is polymerized tung oil, citrus solvent, and beeswax. It penetrates and leaves a layer of wax on the surface, and it gives you a classic butcher block luster. It's food safe, and its best uses are turning, cutting boards, direct food prep surfaces, utensils. We do have there is a furniture business on Long Island that uses Teddy's on their furniture too. Then we make our exterior line, which is basically our original, so polymerized tung oil, odorless mineral spirits, and then we add UV guards and fungicides. I feel like I'm standing in the way. We add UV guards and fungicides to our original to make it hold up better to the elements. And then we also make a spar varnish, which is basically the exterior product with a resin, which is not the same resin that goes into our Murdochs and our wiping varnish. It's a resin that's made for a marine environment. All of these can be used on any wood that's outside, so furniture, decks, siding, boats, jungle gyms, you name it.
If the furniture already has, like spar varnish, does that have to be stripped before you can use this?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it's getting down. Spar varnish, I mean, it can look different with some that's on there and some of it that's worn off. It's going to be uneven. And it's harder to even that out, especially when you have the varnish that discolors a little bit.
Yep.
But if it's just a matter of refreshing it, I mean, ours is designed to go on top of itself as well as to go on to others. If you ever needed to do like a bridge coat, we mix some of the exterior. You can mix the exterior medium or some of the sealer with the spar varnish just to give it a little bit of penetration, and then you start to introduce the resin, and you can sort of rebuild it. But yeah, the idea is to have a maintenance. It's a maintenance coat, no matter what, anything outside.
So the exterior oil is something that we do recommend an annual maintenance coat for that because it does wear with the.
That's what I was actually may have just answered the question. I mean, varnishing. I'm into boat building, and varnishing is the bane of our existence. It's despicable.
Yeah.
Everybody wants bright finish, and I agree to find the varnish that could call a success. So, do you think this is a good substitute for conventional varnish like epiphanes or that kind of thing?
I love Epiphane. It's a great product. It has a higher build than ours. I feel like that I got more mill thickness with Epiphane. I can't say that I remember seeing Epiphane fail. I don't know how it fails. I know our marine spar, if the wood cracks, it'll obviously rip apart the finish. And then I'm sort of watching it fail on this table outside. And it's not sort of lifting the finish like this. It's not like sort of getting in and allowing it to peel up. It's just slowly, like you can see the wood starting to gray around that crack, but it's not delaminating it, and that's really like when you get to that point of where all there's still some on there, some that's not on there, and it's just a flaky mess. Like ours doesn't turn into a flaky mess, but it definitely will crack with the wood.
It will. The starter will crack.
Yeah, but you're just not getting that same delamination effect. It's even with our interior stuff. I've had polyurethanes that didn't bond for whatever reason, environmental or my fault or whatever. But I've had some pretty good fails in my day.
And you recommend like a maintenance coat? You said annually, or just
depending on the elevation. Marine spar, we have a threshold that's facing south in our house that will probably need a coat of spar every year.
Which
other
threshold?
stuff, the back door.
Oh, that's okay.
The
deck has just the oil on it, so there's my confusion.
Yeah, the deck has the oil on it, and the deck with just the oil is going to wear down faster, but it doesn't do anything to the finish. The finish just disappears. So it's just a different, but the resin is a resin. That's a permanent coating. It's hard. I know, like you said, it's like you just have to. We did a door recently that we had to chemically strip, and it was a really nasty marine spar that just took the nastiest chemicals I could throw at it, and it's a pain in the ass.
We take varnish that's failed down to the bone.
Yep.
On a regular basis. Epiphanes we find fails about every 3 weeks. That's what we're finding, and under a lot of use.
Yeah.
So I think we'll give this a shot, see what happens.
Great.
Yeah, please. And I can talk some more about the resin.
Yeah. And then we make these are our exterior products. Clarabelle's is used to consolidate wood fibers, really, really old dry wood, and its best use is under paint. Our exterior sealer and low luster, it's a low luster exterior finish, can be used under paint and also under the exterior medium oil. And the exterior medium oil is an exterior wood finish with a medium luster. It can be brushed, wiped, or sprayed. It does need maintenance coats. It's easy to recoat the oil, not the spark. Easy to recoat. You just need to clean and recoat it every year, so you're not like sanding like a crazy cleaner. You don't have to sand it. You just clean it and recoat it. And then the marine spar is formulated to withstand harsh seasonal cycles, environmental fluctuations, and wet environments. Creates a durable and spectacular high gloss finish. It is very glossy. And here. We're very excited about this. I don't know if anybody saw the elephants that came to Newport last year. So they were here. They were putting a finish. We're not going to name the finish, but the elephants were turning black.
Sorry.
In Newport. And
I didn't get that. Did you guys
It was Osmo. It was the Osmo decking oil.
And somehow they went online and started looking for other finishes and found us, and we developed a relationship with the Great Elephant Migration, and now they're using Sutherland-Welles polymerized tung oil. We're very excited. The elephants are traveling all over the country. People are buying them. It's a great. We can tell you all about this, but I want to keep going because I want to Rob.
And that they are spraying it too.
They do spray it.
Yeah.
I guess the next big step is how we get the oil to India for them. And then we come to our Murdoch's line. Our Murdoch's line is now we're jumping into resin land. Okay, so Murdoch's is our hybrid tung oil resin line. Starts with I'm going to just go. Okay, it's an outstanding Murdoch's Sutherland-Welles. It's an outstanding finish for floors, tabletops, countertops, and any project that will be subject to high use or where the finisher is looking for the beauty and benefits of a tung oil and the protection of a resin. We have a lot of customers out in Colorado where they're like slab happy, and they love the Murdoch's line for slab tables because you can like put a cup, like a hot mug on that surface and it's not going to leave a mark. Or a wet mug. Although we wouldn't recommend leaving like a wet, dripping glass for more than a couple, like 24 hours, it probably would leave a mark.
We tested a can with tomato sauce on it, and overnight it didn't leave a mark.
Yeah.
On the wood, so it's not impenetrable.
Right. So the Murdoch's line blends the benefits and beauty of a tung oil with the extra protection of a resin. It contains a remarkably durable urethane alkyd resin with minimal yellowing or ambering tendencies and amazing clarity that's more like a tung oil than a urethane and does not have the plastic appearance of a polyurethane. Combination of tung oil and resin in the Murdoch's means it's not going to fail over time. It will wear, so you're not going to get like catastrophic fails like we were just talking about if it's applied properly. Applied properly, it's not going to crack, peel, or alligator. It's also easy to repair and recoat. You can spot repair it, and when you need to recoat it, you just clean it, scuff it, and recoat it. So if you do a Murdoch's floor, you never have to sand your floors back down to the bare wood, and the Murdoch's line can be used over existing finishes. It's also compliant with all states' VOC limits, which is really exciting for us.
Which is really hard to do.
It is hard to do, and that's why a lot of oil finishes are going away because it's really, really hard to do. But because we polymerize our oil and don't have to put nasty chemicals in it to get it to work, we are able to create something that we can sell in all.
That's why you'll see a lot of the polyurethanes just in quarts these days, because the only way they'll meet the VOC standards is by selling it in a smaller container.
So then we come to our wiping varnish, which is similar to the Murdoch's line, but it's made to be wiped. Murdoch's is hard seal or hard oil, can be wiped, brushed, or sprayed, where the U500, which is the top coat, needs to be brushed or sprayed. Wiping varnish, the whole line is made to be a hand-rubbed finish. It has equal parts tung oil to resin. It's the same resin we use in Murdoch's, so I'm not going to repeat that again. It was the first line of resin-fortified finishes that we made. It allows you to apply it as a hand wipe finish. It's very user-friendly, just like our original formula, polymerized tung oil and botanical. It contains a VOC exempt solvent, but it is not a VOC exempt product because of the resin. But it gives you, has minimal odor, slow evaporation rate, allowing more open time for application prior to setup and the need to wipe. It is a very beautiful finish. And what else can I say about the wiping varnish? I think that's...
It's loved by it's an amazing woodworker out there, but they end up making a blend of the wiping varnish and the original to do their finishes on their tables, and they do it on mostly walnut. I think it's all walnut.
I don't know what with the Nakashima woodwork, because that's one of our oldest clients.
George Nakashima, and they've been using our finish since the 70s?
Yeah.
60s?
So this is a Nakashima table. They're the people who started the slab building with the bows. That's his thing. He's not alive anymore, but it comes in low, medium, and high lusters, and it's compliant with all states' VOC limits. It's great for anywhere there's water, food, dining room, coffee tables, blah, blah, blah. Then we make a line of stains. These are great. Rob loves stains. He's our stain guy. And our stains are made from aniline dyes and our polymerized tung oil, so you get some protection as you're using the colors. We like to call them old world concentrates, so they're like a preservation-y kind of historic palette. Mm-hmm. They're made to be, they come super concentrated, they can be diluted, or mixed and matched, so you can make your own colors. We do color matching of stains if you're ever in need of that service. And
So they're stains and not dyes?
They're dyes.
They're dyes.
They're dyes.
They're dyes, not stains.
Okay.
But we call them
So,
stains.
yeah, we use dyes, not pigment, not a colorant. So you're going to have a lot more.
So they're not
Trend.
sitting on top as much?
You're not. Yeah, you're seeing through it a lot
Yeah,
more.
it's
So
very
sometimes
clear.
to get a real deep color, it's harder
Yeah.
because you have to do like sort of multiple coats. If people are doing multiple coats and want a really really rich color, I might say just go straight to an aniline dye, so you're not closing the grain immediately. Because our finish actually has the tung oil in it, so it does close the grain as you put a coat of color on it. But what I like to do with it is I like to add color to every coat sometimes, just if I want to change tones and so forth. And that's kind of when I was talking with the previous owner a lot, I would call and I say, can I mix this with it? Can I mix oil paint with it? Can I mix colorant? Can I go to the hardware store and just ask them for the pigment and mix it with the finish? And she was always like, oh yeah, you can. And just have to be careful of sometimes some colorants don't mix well. And but I used to mix Impervo with our finish and just to kind of create more of a opaque finish. And so I really kind of learned to play with color, especially with old houses. A lot of times we're trying to fake it. And I even brought some stuff where we oxidize. We have an oxidizer that we sell too.
Oh, that's not on the list. We make an oxidizer.
Yeah, and the oxidizer is really neat because it's going to give us that quick sort of color change from UV degradation and it won't double over time. So it's not like you hit it with oxidizer and then it's twice as bad in 10 years. It just sort of accelerates that natural change of the wood. So between that and the stains, and then sometimes I add some colorant, or that and the dyes, and then sometimes I add some colorant, I can kind of nail something. I actually had to reproduce a mahogany panel that the lacquer was so yellowed that it was just, I had to like literally add a ton of colorant to our finish to just hide the grain. It broke my heart because it was like the piece of wood was beautiful, but I had to kill it to match all the other panels. So that's kind of the fun of the finish, is that it's an oil finish and that you can mix oils with it, and so. Anyway.
And it's an interior only finish.
Yeah.
We are working on formulating something, exterior colorants that you can mix in with our exterior oils, but as of now, it's just a clear coat for the exterior.
It's that light fastness for a lot of the dyes. Just isn't like, you have to get metallic based dyes that are a little more expensive, and depending on the color you get is how much it degrades. So we are testing it now, but if people call me and ask how to make exterior stuff, I can sort of coach them through some commercially made stuff to mix with ours.
All right, and then we make some tung oil paste waxes. We have samples for you all. So if you'd like to try these, you can take a sample home with you. On the left is the Teddy's polymerized tung oil paste wax. It's a luscious 1 to 2 coat finish that's simply satisfying. It contains pure polymerized tung oil, pure beeswax, and hemp seed oil. It's for wood, brick, stone, metal, leather. It has 0 VOC, and it can be used on top of other finishes or alone. And then we make something called Slicky Wicky Witch's Wax. We do like to have fun with words and names at Sutherland-Welles. Magically transform friction into slide with Slicky Wicky Witch's Wax. You will glide. I did not cut that. If you ever call and talk to Abigail, that was Abigail.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. 0 VOC lubricant for windows, wood, stone, metal, and leather, and it's made with polymerized tung oil, beeswax, paraffin, and Carnauba wax. Rob formulated this so he could use it in his window restoration because the butcher's wax was too stinky and he had clients complaining. And so now it goes when they, install
When we
sash.
get the old double hung windows back.
Yeah, they lubricate, and then we make some wood care products. We make a tung oil polish, which is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful wood polish. I can't say enough good things about it. It will rejuvenate any finish, not just ours. And also, one thing I should tell you, if any of you have like businesses and you make furniture, we do private labeling, and we do that for quite a few of our furniture makers, where we can, you want to make a wood care kit to give to your customer with your logo on it. We do things like that. We make bowl and board, which is it's a conditioner for cutting boards. It's mineral oil and beeswax, not a finish, just a conditioner. And a wood cleaner, because many wood cleaners can mess up our finish. So we tell people either to use our wood cleaner, mixture of vinegar and water, or Rob does not like this, but I really, really like Meyer's Clean Day cleaners. They smell really good and they seem to be fine on our finish.
Why do I like it?
Because I'm not using,
Oh, our cleaner?
yeah. And then we have some tips and tricks. Everything is food safe once it's fully cured after 30 days, with the exception of the teddies and millies, which is food safe after 72 days because the beeswax sits on top.
72 hours?
Yeah.
You said days.
So, 72 hours. Thank you for correcting me. The environmental conditions will affect cure time. The ideal conditions are 55 to 75 degrees with humidity less than 65%. So in Rhode Island, finishing in the summer can be trickier than in the spring or the fall, as you probably already know. Apply thin coats. That's the most important thing. Oil finishes will accentuate your sanding marks, sand well. Back to thin coats. This allows each coat to dry enough to apply another coat on top. Do not wipe your first coat. Watch for dry spots during the first 15 minutes after application. Apply more oil to those areas until you get an even sheen on the surface, and then walk away. Do not try to rush dry time, and always perform a cure test before applying a new coat, which basically involves running your fingers over the surface of the wood. If there's any friction, give it more time. Your fingers should slide really easily over the surface. And when you go to scuff, if you get a white powder, you're good to go. And this is, sorry.
Well,
We're going to send a code out too for you guys. You'll all get a
so
coupon code.
there are basically the three types of varnishes: a slow, a medium, and a fast. Is that what it's called? Fast cure. Is that right? So the idea is that our tongue oil itself is a slower cure. It does need oxygen for it to finish its polymerization process. So it dries overnight, but it takes about a week to cure. So we have folks that dance studios love the finish, but they can't rush it, so they have to. It takes 4 or 5 days of coating, and then you have to wait about a week for it to fully cure to walk on it or to really use it.
And the full cure is 30 days.
Yeah. So but it's just a really, really slow cure finish. As soon as we add the resin in, the resin is more of a faster cure. It's not so much relying on oxygen as it is sort of evaporation. Just almost true. But so it's going to be a much faster cure. In 72 hours, you can get really a good through cure of the resin-based finishes. So when you're using the blends, you'll still, like when we're moving stuff around, we're going to want to, at least if we're using the tongue oil or even the wiping varnishes or the hard oils or any of those guys that are blends, we're really going to want to wait a couple of days just because the finish is a little soft. People sometimes, but even the same course with resin, some guys finish the floor and the next day they come in and they'll put paper on the whole thing, which is too quick. You've got to let that thing breathe or else it does funny things to the finish. Since it has to finish that polymerization process, if you put it on really thick, meaning that it literally you wipe your finger across it and it's like parting a sea. If it's that thick, not enough oxygen is going to get through it. So it's going to really, really, really slow down that cure to the point of where sometimes it won't even cure. It'll just sort of stay rubbery. So that's why we say thin coats is really the kind of key for it.
Dumb question. Do you leave finish on without wiping off?
I do, yes. So what Frank was trying to recreate a French polish, right? And so what he figured out is by cooking it, if you leave it on there for about 40 minutes, the original tongue oil or the botanical tongue oil or even the wiping varnish, your solvent is going to flash away and you're going to be left with a finish that is still wet and not curing like a resin. It can actually be excited to cure. So Frank, what he did is he would heat up his hand on his pants and sort of do that to the finish after about 30 minutes, and he would kind of buff it out.
And then you have tongue oil over your hand and it's as sticky as it is.
But you're
it's
wiping
not
it
that
off.
wet.
You're wiping it off, though.
You're not wiping it off. No, it's not. It's not like putting it on and waiting 5 minutes and wiping it off, because then you're just going to see your sanding marks again. Like, it's just going to be dull again. You want to wait like a little bit longer for it to wipe it again. But you can just wipe it on and walk away. You don't need to wipe it off.
And you can also brush it on and walk away.
Right.
Just depend, you know, that's if you brush, it's going to give you. You're going to get more of a build more quickly, and it's also going to increase the sheen of the finish. So, you know, if you're wiping or you're doing the buffing technique, your sheen is going to be lower because you're removing some of the oil.
So then, even with the original stuff or the wiping varnish, after, what is it, 2 days or so, you can go back with a buffer and actually buff it. So you can get sort of that polish or take off any nubs and things like that. So it's something that's what I was saying. Even like places like Nakashima, they're like, the wiping varnish wasn't good enough of a mix for them. They've got to add some original tung oil to it as well. You know, and I'm surprised. I think Frank, at one point, Frank even had another 10 or 15 finishes beyond this. He was just nuts. He would make like, oh, this is 80% this, 20% this one's 70-30, and he would just sort of make these crazy variations.
And this is why we have so many different.
But I think for some, like for my shop, for the 15 years I was using it, all I knew was the Murdochs. I never really got into the original. I didn't get into the wiping varnishes. I only used the hard sealer, hard oil, and the U500. And even for us carpenters who were doing houses, we could use the hard oil and wipe it on and make it look like a really beautiful finish. You know, but then someone else can come in and buff it afterwards and make it look like something that's from out of France. You know, it's humbling to see people do something.
Yeah.
Can any of the products be HVLP sprayed?
Yes. Yep. The only one probably would be the Millie's because it's the beeswax one. You know, it's just making sure the machine's clean and all that fun stuff. You don't want to thin it, especially the resin ones. You don't want to thin, and you don't have to. You know, the resin-based finishes, since we have to add matting agent to kill the sheen, because resin is sort of one sheen that's either on or off, and the matting agent sort of kills it a little bit, which is an additive to the finish, which basically is these tiny little particles that are suspended to make it look less glossy, just small pieces of silica. That particular finish,
It's not that one. It's this one.
no.
This has
your sheen is controlled by the amount of matting agent in there, right? The original one, your sheen is controlled by how much oil you're leaving behind. So that's why we say you can make your own formula. So you can take high and thin it. So when you're wiping it on, once it evaporates, it's a thinner layer of oil, so it doesn't look as shiny, right? So that's sort of that plate. I used to use the low, and I'd brush it out, and I'm like, this is glossy. It's because I was leaving a lot of oil on the top. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Question, how about if you do spray it, what would you use to clean the gun?
Mineral spirits, just normal cleaning. You know, denatured doesn't really cut it, but odorless mineral spirits is what we make it with. You wouldn't want to use the citrus-based solvents, which I know can clean a lot of stuff. Well, it's expensive, but it can be gummy. Like it can leave behind a gummy. But that's why we end up hand mixing everything instead of using machines, because we'd have to clean everything every day.
Yeah,
So.
We're like small batch, handmade, everything.
So we usually make, most of the finishes are around 7-gallon batches, 9-gallon batches. The resin is 32-gallon batches. So we don't have like big vats of it, like some of the other guys that are messing with stuff.
Yeah, I have a question about, I've never really gotten my head around what a sealer is and when you need a sealer. When is a sealer necessary?
So, well, I guess in the sense of in the resin world, right? The idea is that you don't want to use a full resin because the full resin is more sitting at the top and not really designed to penetrate. So the first coat, you really want it to go into the grain and sort of create latch points to the grain. And then as you get to your resin, the finish ends up filling the grain and creating that flat for the resin to go on top. So using pure resin, it's sort of like putting finish paint right on top. It's just not going in, and it's not going to create that bond.
So would you use shellac for sealant, or?
We have, depending on the finish you use, we have some finishes, the original and the botanical tung oils, you make your own kind of
Well,
sealer
we do sell a sealer for those.
We sell a sealer for them, but you don't have to start with it because it's already a penetrating oil. The resin stuff, we make a hard sealer that's designed as a bridge coat, so it can go from shellac to our finish. And I have used shellac as a first coat, like just to kind of close the grain down a little bit. But yeah, the sealers are really designed to be that bridge between absorption and sitting on top. Is the premier idea behind it.
So I'm trying to make sure I get to everybody, but the gentleman behind Merle diagonally.
I have a couple of clarifying questions. So when you talk about 100% tung oil, like having purchased cheese products that say made with 100% cheese, is the 100% tung oil the only oil in your products, or is it just that there is some 100% tung oil?
It's a good question.
It's the only oil in our product. We only use 100% pure tung oil, and then we polymerize it because we don't mix any other oils, but it's not the only ingredient in the finish. So it's different. Like you could buy a jar, you can buy a can of raw tung oil, which is just pure tung oil. But that's not what we do, because once you polymerize it, you have to add the solvent to it. Otherwise, it's like this. It's super thick, like honey, and you don't really want to do any finishing with that.
So yes, no, it's not saying that the finish is 100% tung oil and nothing else.
Right.
It's made with tung oil with other solvents.
Yeah.
There's a couple other ingredients that we put in there to kind of stabilize it. There's like phenolic flakes and things like that just stabilize it, but it's not anything that's adding to the performance of the finish.
All oil is tung oil, so that's what I wanted to check on. And so earlier too, you talked about linseed oil, which I've always loved the linseed oil, but I haven't found the downsides. But out of curiosity, when you talked about the mildew and stuff like that, were you talking about raw linseed oil or boiled linseed oil or both?
So pure boil, like real boiled linseed oil is very similar to our polymerized tung oil. They don't cook it as long as we do.
Yeah.
So they don't have to add anything to it. They don't add thinners to it. They just boil it and get a little greater viscosity out of it. And you get a similar performance where you can kind of get a build out of a boiled linseed oil. But the linseed oil itself is prone to more fungal, it reacts to the environment a little bit more than tung oil would. When Frank was researching it, he was trying to be as objective as possible about I want to find the best oil, and he was working with this company, Empire Varnish, and I think he explored all resins and oils, and he ended up coming to tung oil as the thing.
And isn't a lot of boiled linseed oil chemically treated?
Well, right. When I say the real boiled, the difference is it's like turpentine today versus what was turpentine. So the boil, what happened, we were working with Spinia, you were saying before Spinia, but the Historic New England, and they taught me this finish called Valpenterp. It was val oil, turpentine, penetrol, and varnish, right? And so we used to use that Paul pre-paint, treatment. At some point, I started noticing that the turpentine stank. Like it just didn't smell the same way. It smelled like somebody poured gasoline over my shop. So that was when we ended up switching to the tung oil, because just everybody was getting away from the true boil product. So, but everything I found, if you were to do side-by-side comparison, it's just one is from China and one is from England. But fundamentally, they're really close to each other. And the only downside is linseed oil is a little bit more prone to getting
Funky. Okay, so wait. So gentleman in the plaid and then the gentleman in the red So you guys can duke it out over who wants to go first, and then we'll take more.
I got a real quick one. So the question is, I work with a lot of cherry.
Yep.
I always seal it because you don't want it to blotch up when you put your final finish on it.
Right.
So the question would be, I usually use shellac. So if I use the Tung-Welles sealer, will that do the same thing that I'm trying to accomplish? If I use the Tung-Welles sealer on cherry,
Yep.
it will basically stop it from blotching?
Well, I mean, I think the blotchy is sort of, it's a question of is it the finish or is it like the wood?
The wood, because, so in the cherry work I've done,
Yep.
usually you get cherry with all kinds of different figure and everything.
Yeah,
So it's all different tightnesses. So when you put a final finish without a sealer, you get these blotches. So what I found is with a light coat of shellac,
Yep.
very light shellac, it will sort of make it more consistent across the board.
It's like some of the other woods, like spalted maples,
Yeah.
cherry.
Heart
What's that?
Is it the same problem with heart pine?
No, hard
I'm not a
pine.
wood person.
Yeah, no, hard pine. It usually has so much resin in it. That's a different problem.
That's a different
But
problem,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you can. It's a matter of closing down that really porous grain, right? Walnut was the other one I was thinking of, especially when it goes to a branch or something like that.
Right.
So you can close it all down faster with a shellac, right? That's not going to hurt it. It's not going to hurt the bond or anything like that. What we usually suggest is literally the first coat. I don't care if you pour it on the wood, and after 15 minutes, if it's all soaks in, put more on it. Like so, the first coat you just keep putting on until it stops drinking it. Because if you don't do that, then you're just going to spend 3 or 4 coats and it's going to look exactly the same. Because you just want to fill up that bucket of all that finish and all those open straws. You want to kind of
So
fill it.
you could do a shellac seal.
Yep.
And then you could put the Tung-Welles over it because now what that does is it gives you the seal, except it's not hard.
Right, as long as it's not the wax-based shellac.
Yeah. So I could go over it. I could go over the shellac with the Tung-Welles.
Yep.
Give me a harder oil finish.
Yeah, we even do that if I need to do like a sample for somebody, a stain sample.
Yeah.
I'll like close the grain real fast with a shellac and then I'll stain it and then I'll.
And when customers have had trouble with like heart pine, we'll tell them to put a coat of shellac down because of the resins in the heart pine.
Because it won't, the finish doesn't dry. It just sort of like connects to the resin of the pitch resin and it just doesn't cure. So you'll sit there for like days. And,
Messy. Yeah.
but like I said before, our finish does like to cure with air. So unless you're on your final finish, I put a fan on it like almost every time, and that'll just help it cure just by the air moving. So what? Yeah.
So I want to pursue a couple of questions about the wax, the stuff, all of these finishes that they add wax to. We're talking about Caranuba wax that you added.
Yep.
Is that wax dissolved or is that a micro-emulsion of wax?
So we only put Carnauba in this one product, and then he can answer the rest of the question.
So
Otherwise, we use beeswax if we put it like the Millie's has beeswax in it.
You know, we buy this stuff that's a real micro-emulsion of stuff, and you can kind of shake it and you can see the little light scattering on the particles.
Yep. We heat it. We heat it, and everything melts together. Since we're doing all small batch stuff, it's literally someone like he's just there like a little witch with a 2.5 gallon or a 5 gallon container, and it just melts down the wax, and then we just pour our solvent in it, and then this is like these finishes, the waxes and Millie's. The waxes mostly. We don't put any thinners in those. Those are just tung oil, the polymerized tung oil, heated with the wax. But actually, we melt the wax into the hemp seed oil first, and then we mix it in with our tung oil, and then it hardens up. But you can see, this is the Millie's. And really, Millie's and Teddy's are the exact, or very similar formula, except that has thinner in it. or it has
It's
a
it's
citrus-based
liquid,
thinner.
yeah.
And so this is basically the same thing, except it doesn't have the thinner. So it's a paste, a very hard wax. So some people, they like to use that on the lathe just because it's a nice wet mix, and as opposed to just using this. But I put this on everything from cutting boards and. But the Millie's it was so foreign to me, I wouldn't even try it before I had the company.
I think I tried it before you did.
I think so too. But it's really, you can pass it around this one. It's really a wild finish. The idea, it's unlike anything I've ever heard of applying. You put it on sloppily 3 times in 3 days. And each time you put it on, it sort of reinvigorates it from the day before. And it's sort of just sitting underneath this wax and tung oil that isn't really curing for 3 days. And then you're sort of oversaturating the wood, and it's all sitting on top. You put your 3rd coat on, and you scrub it with a coarse steel wool. You wipe it, and you walk away. So it's a really, really interesting finish. People do it on floors.
Mostly in the South,
yeah,
where they like wax floors.
So, but I've only really used it for like cutting boards.
There is a difference if you make your own shellac out of waxed or de-waxed shellac.
Yep.
Huge difference.
I was never so bold to. I wish I did dissolve my flakes and so forth.
Do you have another question over here, Rob?
Okay, so I often end up with half a can. And does it develop a skin? And if it does, any other than the conventional things, I mean, you can put nitrogen in and different tricks. But
Yeah, so the citrus base, all these age differently. Once you start putting the citrus in it, the citrus, it's sort of like if you smell like orange juice that's older, it gets really, really pungent. But then it gets thicker, and then it gets really reddish over time. And what the tung oil does in the can is it slowly just loses all the solvent, and then it just starts to turn into a jelly mess again.
Yeah.
There are times that you can take the original tung oil and add more thinner to it and get it reinvigorated. That's the tung oil.
So, and we do have a couple of the Bloxygen that, right, that's, we don't sell that, but a lot of our customers use it. We will recommend decanting into a smaller container. We would recommend, you could also take some like clean stones and put them in there to just fill up, and we sell stop loss bags, yeah.
Right.
So.
And then if you need to strain it, just conventional paint strainer kind of thing?
Yep. We do put them through a strainer, and it's a pretty fine strainer.
We do 2 strainers.
Yeah, depending on which finish it is, we do put it through a couple, but we always recommend it. Especially the Murdoch's line that has like even the matte or the satin, because you have that matting agent in it. It's a silica that's suspended, it's not dissolved in it. So, and people have complained to us, they're like, it was really glossy at the top and then it got really dull at the bottom. Sometimes,
Sutherland-Welles.
yeah,
It
sometimes
has a Sutherland-Welles sticker on the top of the cans too, just FYI.
sometimes the matting agent can get clumpy, but you don't have to strain it. I mean, the nice thing is, especially the wiping ones, you can sort of like, even if I see something's happening to the finish in 15 minutes, I can still mess with it.
Right.
Very
forgiving.
Yeah, it's very forgiving, and you find your own voice with it. Like how much you want to put on there. Do you want to take some of it off? This Murdoch's, the U500 though, this is more like a traditional poly. You're just going to brush it on and walk away. It's going to start to change in about 10 minutes. So you don't want to touch it again because you're like, oh my God, it's flashing all over the place. And you're like, oh wait, I'll let it sit. And dust is still a problem. But I noticed, like, if I use the original tung oil or something I can wipe, if it is in a dustier environment, I can wait that half hour and kind of buff it a little bit, and it's gonna be less likely for junk to kind of attach to it.
So I think maybe we'll.
We have one more question.
One more question.
Sure.
How do your products, particularly the tung oil ones, perform on coco bolo and other oily woods like that? Do they cure?
That's the ones that you're gonna wanna.
That's the problem.
Yeah, like sometimes we've had to wait on like a teak or something like that. You end up waiting a couple days because you don't want to rush it. You don't want to put that second coat on there while it's still trying to cure. But they're definitely. I mean, this isn't a quick finish, and it definitely slows down a lot if you're going to do something like those woods.
But the coat of shellac would help.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was gonna ask, you'll be here for a little bit longer?
Yeah.
If,
I can bring out I can pull
He's
out
gonna
stuff
be here.
too.
I gotta
some
take off.
things, and, okay. And where can we buy this amazing product?
Adler's Hardware, Color House, in all their locations except for Westerly, and directly from us.
Yep.
Except that, again, we're not a retail outlet, so you would just be coming to pick things up.
Right.
So
Adler's-
it's not a
Adler's
retail
right
store
on
to
Wickenden
manufacture.
Adler's on Wickenden Street, and if there's something that you need that they don't have, they can, they'll come over and pick it up and get it for you. And we ship if you want to pay for shipping in Rhode Island. So we do UPS ground one day.
So just be sure you guys can grab, anyone can grab either our Slicky Wiki or the Teddies or both.
And we have some brochures and maybe a couple stickers left.
Well, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that was really good.